Lawyers for Bali Nine pair Andrew Chan and Myron Sukumaran are continuing their efforts to stall their impending execution. For the latest, we're joined now in Melbourne by a member of the legal team, Peter Morrissey SC. Peter, good morning to you.
Good morning, how are you doing?
I'm very well. What's the latest information or indication at least you have on when the two may be moved to this island for their potential execution?
Well, we hope they're not going to be moved at all right now because there's still a proper legal court process going on in the administrative court. We've got a challenge to the clemency decision and we're hoping that Indonesia will abide by the rule of law and not execute them while that's going ahead. If they give it a proper hearing, they probably never be executed because they might be persuaded. But as far as we know, they haven't been moved yet. Just to be clear, even if they are moved, we'll keep the fight going.
What rule of law are you talking about when it comes to this appeal?
Well, it's that courts decide legal cases and the government doesn't. What we've got in Indonesia right now is there's a live court proceeding, but the Attorney General keeps threatening to move them and to proceed with the execution. So it's as if the courts on the one hand have got a live case, but on the other hand the government's proceeding to execute. And that's just not the rule of law.
OK, there's the rule of law, there's the Attorney General, but of course sitting on top of all of those structures is of course the President, Joko Widodo, and he, Peter, as you know, has made it very clear there'll be no change to his stance denying the two clemency.
Well, we hope to persuade him to change that, but even if he doesn't change now, what we hope he will do is make sure that the court process doesn't get interfered with. He's in a difficult position and time is our friend there. We need to give him time to see the benefits of the boys and to engage with them directly. And we won't do that if we are smashing him and pressuring him and blaming him and demanding. What Australia's stance needs to be is the one that the politicians have been doing. Our politicians have been superb about this. They've been really good. And they need to keep saying, you're not under pressure. This is the plea of a friend. It's not the demand of a colonial master. And that is the message, and we hope it'll get through. But you know, that hasn't always been the message in the past. It takes a while to get through. We're grateful for it. We hope it does get through.
But equally, the President is under a lot of domestic pressure from his own constituency to be seen as being tough on drug smugglers. So do you believe you'll be hostage to that political domestic debate as well?
Well, that debate has gripped countries across the world, that people who want to look tough when they're not act as if being tough on crime and being brutal in heavy sentencing and even imposing death penalties is a way of showing toughness. It's really the reverse of that. Showing toughness is showing restraint when your natural instinct is not to do it. When you've got people who are convicted of drug dealing and you feel like smashing them, it's good and it's strong to show restraint. And the Indonesians are wonderful at getting restraint for their own people abroad. They do it really well. They persuaded the Saudis to spare Indonesian foreign workers, and we're hoping they get some perspective from that and that they're able to consider sparing some of the foreigners in their own land who have transgressed.
Now, as you know, Peter, there have been allegations swirling around over the last 24 hours about bribes allegedly paid or being sought by judges involved in the earlier hearing of the cases against Myron and Andrew to offer lesser sentences. Is your legal team investigating that as another source of appeal?
Yeah, well, we certainly are. All of that happened long before we actually became involved, so we don't have first-hand knowledge of it. The allegations are chiefly coming from a lawyer involved at the time, a serious person. He's a lawyer. We're not going to grandstand. We're asking for the rule of law, so we can't, we can't start throwing allegations around ourselves. All we can say is they have to be looked at properly. I mean, imagine having an execution and then it turning out that that was all true. You know, later on we'd wring our hands and say, oh, we must never let that happen again. Well, let's not let it happen now. There's a judicial commission in Indonesia, and that's where this matter will go.
With all these irons in the fire, Peter Morrissey, how confident are you at the start of a week, the end of which may see the executions slated, of winning an 11th hour stay of execution?
Well, look, you know, we lawyers are very close to the case and, you know, we like to keep optimistic to keep going. But at the same time, objectively speaking, things are, although there's more of a crisis now, I feel things are better. We've got a good live court process going on. There's a live debate in Indonesia. Many voices in Indonesia are now piping up in our favour. So it's coming to a bit of a crisis and crunch. We're very anxious and nervous, of course, as the boys are, sitting in their jail, painting their pictures and doing what they can. But there is reason for optimism, and there's no need to have a countdown to death right now. because right up until they say ready, aim, fire, we are a chance and we've got a good case before the court. And one day the President might say, let's let the rule of law prevail, and he can do that right until the last 5 minutes. So if you're thinking there's going to be some surrender, there's not.
And as far as you know, about being a member of their legal team, how are Andrew and Myron holding up in this critical week?
Oh, they're amazing boys. I'm not there, I'm here in Melbourne, but the team are there. Obviously I know them and I've met them, and they're looking after other people in the prison, they're looking after their families. It's a psychological burden for them. It's cruel, it's unnatural. Can you imagine sitting there waiting and wondering whether you're going to be executed or not? And if so, when, and in fairly brutal circumstances on a beach. It's a real strain for them, and they are holding up well. They're doing their best.
And finally, Peter Morrissey, what do you say to the view expressed by at least some portion of the Australian population, and it came up on the ABC's Q&A program again last night? Well, it goes, Andrew Chan and Myuran Sukumaran knew exactly what they were doing, and they knew exactly the risks in smuggling drugs in Bali, and therefore they deserve their fate. What do you say to that argument?
Look, that poll asked the wrong questions. Triple J put it out. Triple J have been wonderful. They shouldn't take the blame, but the poll was phrased badly. Most Australians, once they engage with the question, are supportive of Andrew and Myuran. If you put the question, should we shoot filthy drug traffickers? Well, of course, the answer will be from people in the pub, yes. But if it is, should we shoot these two totally reformed boys? The answer will always be no. Everything turns on the question that's asked. And anyone who engages in the case stops having that ignorant, savage approach and starts having a more empathetic approach. You see people who you would expect a different view from now in the paper and on the TV being very humane and understanding. And it's because of engaging with the actual human beings that can happen. Okay. And it has happened. So,
yeah, well,
that's our hope.
Peter, we'll see how events of this week pan out. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Will. No worries. Thanks a lot.